Ethan's boots pressed into the soft, pale blue soil as he stepped off the transport platform. The air on the alien world felt light and carried a faint, sweet scent, almost like flowers after rain. It was his first time on the planet Valoria, a place humans had only recently made peaceful contact with. The sky shimmered with shades of green and gold, and the buildings looked like crystal towers grown out of the ground instead of built. He had been sent as part of a small human diplomatic team, meant to strengthen trade ties and show goodwill. But as he walked toward the ceremonial courtyard of the royal palace, Ethan felt every eye on him. Valorians were tall, slender, and carried themselves with a kind of graceful pride. Their skin had subtle, iridescent patterns, shifting slightly with the light, and their hair flowed like strands of silk. In comparison, Ethan felt ordinary, heavy-footed, and out of place. The welcoming ceremony was in full motion. Musicians played, soft humming tones on stringed instruments, and the palace guards stood like statues, their armor reflecting sunlight. The king of Valoria, seated on a raised crystal throne, watched the human delegation with an unreadable expression. And then Ethan saw her. She was standing just behind the king's right side, wearing a long gown made of silver and pale blue threads that shimmered like water. Her eyes were brighter than any jewel he had seen, and her expression wasn't the reserved calm that most Valorians wore. Instead, she looked curious, deeply curious. She tilted her head slightly, as if studying a creature she had never seen before. Princess Serenia. Ethan didn't know her name yet, but he felt her gaze on him immediately. It wasn't shy or nervous. It was focused, like she was trying to memorize every detail about him. Her lips moved slightly, as if she was whispering questions to herself. When the human delegation bowed to the king, Ethan lowered his head respectfully, but when he looked up again, the princess had stepped forward. She ignored the ceremonial order, walking right past two startled guards, and came to stand only a few feet from him. "You are a human?" Her voice was melodic, but the words were careful, like she was testing a language she had only recently learned. Ethan hesitated. "Yes, I am." Her eyes widened slightly. "I have read about your kind in the archives, but the council said they were stories, myths. Now you stand here." She walked slowly around him, her gaze moving from his boots to his hands, then to his face. "Your skin, it does not change color. Your eyes are not like ours. And you have hair on your face?" The murmurs from the audience grew louder. This was not how a royal ceremony was supposed to go. Still, she seemed unaware of how much attention they were attracting. "Princess..." One of the guards tried to step forward, but the king raised his hand slightly, allowing her to continue. Ethan cleared his throat, trying to keep his voice calm. "We are different. Yes, humans come from a planet far from here. We look this way naturally." She leaned a little closer, examining his jacket. "And your clothing is not alive. Ours breathe with us. Yours is dead fabric." He almost smiled. "Yes, we make our clothes from woven material. It doesn't breathe." Her expression turned thoughtful, like she was already imagining how such clothing might feel. "Interesting. You must tell me more." Before Ethan could answer, the king finally spoke. His voice was deep and resonant. "Serenia, return to your place." But she did not move immediately. She gave Ethan one last look, a spark of excitement in her eyes, then stepped back with slow, deliberate grace. The ceremony continued, but Ethan could feel her eyes on him the entire time. Whenever he glanced toward the throne, she was watching him, not with suspicion, not with fear, but with the kind of interest that made him both uneasy and strangely aware of his every movement. When the formal greetings ended, the human delegation was escorted to their guest quarters within the palace. The rooms were beautiful, walls of translucent crystal, soft glowing light from panels in the ceiling, and furniture shaped like smooth stone. As he was setting down his travel bag, Ethan heard a soft chime at the door. He opened it to find Princess Serenia standing there, alone. "You didn't answer all my questions," she said simply, stepping inside without waiting for permission. Ethan blinked. "I didn't know there was more to answer." "There is always more to answer," she said with a faint smile. She walked around his room, touching the edge of his travel case, peeking at the communicator on the table, examining the small patches on his uniform. "Tell me, how strong are you compared to a Valorian? Can you breathe in thin air? Do you dream in colors or sounds?" He had to admit, her curiosity was genuine, almost childlike. "I don't know about strength, maybe less than some of your people. I can breathe in air thinner than this, but not for too long. And my dreams? They have colors, sometimes sounds too." She nodded as if noting this down in her mind. "Fascinating. I will need to see how you walk, how you eat, how you fight." "Fight?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Of course. All living beings must know how to defend themselves." He laughed lightly. "You really are curious." She met his gaze, her tone serious now. "Curiosity is the path to truth. I have never seen your kind before. Now that I have, I must learn." Before Ethan could reply, a sharp knock came at the door. A palace guard stood there, bowing slightly. "Princess, the king requests your presence. Immediately." Serenia sighed, but gave Ethan one last, determined look. "This is not the last time I will see you, human." And then she was gone, her silver gown catching the light as she moved down the hallway. Ethan closed the door slowly, leaning against it. He had come here expecting formal talks, cultural exchanges, and maybe a few cautious handshakes. He hadn't expected the princess to walk straight into his life, full of questions, and a gaze that felt like it could see right through him. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning, and she was not done with him. Not even close. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of soft chimes outside his guest room. Sunlight, if it could be called that, streamed through the crystal walls, painting the floor in patterns of green and gold. He sat up slowly, still adjusting to the strange rhythms of the Valorian palace. There was a knock at the door. When he opened it, Princess Serenia stood there, smiling. "You rise early," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Good. Today I will show you the capital." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "Good morning to you, too. I'm not sure if my schedule allows—" "It allows," she said with complete certainty. "I checked with the palace coordinator." And just like that, she turned and began walking down the hallway, expecting him to follow. He hesitated for a moment, but then sighed and grabbed his jacket. "All right. Lead the way, princess." The palace corridors were quiet at this hour, but servants and guards gave curious looks as the human and the princess walked together. She moved gracefully, her gown flowing behind her, while Ethan's footsteps echoed in contrast. As they stepped outside, the capital spread before them. Towering crystal buildings, gardens shaped like spirals, and streets that curved gently around pools of glowing water. Merchants set up stalls selling fabrics that shimmered like starlight and fruits with colors Ethan had never seen before. "This is the heart of Valoria," Serenia said proudly. "Most foreigners are not allowed here. But you are different." "Different? How?" Ethan asked. She gave him a sideways glance. "You do not act like others. Most visitors look at us with either fear or arrogance. You simply look and listen." Before he could answer, she stopped at a small shop and pointed at a display of pale blue orbs. "These are moon fruit. Try one." The vendor looked nervous as Ethan reached for one, but Serenia nodded reassuringly. Ethan bit into it, surprised by the burst of sweet, cool juice. "It's good," he admitted. Serenia smiled. "See? You are learning already." They continued walking, but Ethan noticed something. People were whispering as they passed. The sight of the princess walking side by side with a human was clearly unusual. Some faces showed curiosity, others clear disapproval. At one point, a pair of older Valorians muttered loud enough for Ethan to hear, "A royal should not waste her time on an off-worlder." Serena didn't seem to notice, or maybe she chose not to. She was busy pointing out different landmarks, the Hall of Winds, where their lawmakers met, the Garden of Memory, filled with flowers that bloomed only at night, and the Great Bridge, which connected the royal district to the marketplace. Whenever Ethan stopped to examine something, she waited patiently, watching his reactions. Sometimes she would ask strange questions about how humans saw colors, about the taste of human water, about how long it took for him to heal from a cut. It was clear she wasn't going to leave his side. By midday, they reached the main square. A large fountain in the center sent streams of water spiraling into the air, catching the sunlight. People gathered here to trade goods and share news. Ethan was taking in the scene when he realized the princess was speaking to him again. "Do you know why I follow you?" "Because you're curious," he guessed. "Partly, but also because I wish to understand. Our worlds are so different, yet I think there is something important we share." He raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "We both value choice," she said simply. "Many here do not realize it, but I choose to be here with you. No one told me to." Ethan wasn't sure how to respond to that. Before he could, a voice called from behind them. It was one of the royal guards. "Princess, the king wishes to remind you that you have council duties this afternoon." Serena waved her hand dismissively. "Tell him I am engaged in important cultural study." The guard hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but nodded and walked away. Ethan couldn't help but smirk. "I don't think your father will be happy." "He will understand eventually," she replied. "He must." After a short rest by the fountain, they moved on. This time, Ethan noticed more than just curious stares. He saw figures slipping into the crowd, watching them too closely. Their eyes followed him, not the princess. It made him uneasy. As they turned down a quieter street lined with gardens, one of the figures stepped forward. He was tall, wearing plain robes, but his eyes were sharp. "Human," the man said. "You do not belong here. Leave before you bring trouble." Serena stepped between them without hesitation. "He is here under my invitation. If you have an issue, you bring it to me." The man's expression darkened. "Princess, you risk the honor of your people, and you risk the honor of your manners," she said firmly. "Stand aside." Reluctantly, the man stepped back, but not before giving Ethan a long, cold stare. Once they were walking again, Ethan said quietly, "That could have turned bad." Serena glanced at him. "It did not, because I was here. But you see now why I must stay close? There are those who fear what they do not understand. I intend to show them there is nothing to fear." They eventually returned to the palace as the sun dipped lower, casting the sky in deep gold. Ethan was tired from the day's walk, but Serena seemed energized, already talking about what they would do tomorrow. "You're planning tomorrow already?" he asked with a small laugh. "Of course. Tomorrow, we visit the archives. I wish to see what your records say about us." As they reached his room, she paused. Ethan, you will not leave without telling me, will you?" He shook his head. "No. You'd probably follow me anyway." She smiled at that. A bright, genuine smile. "Yes, I would." And with that, she left him to rest, her gown shimmering as she disappeared down the hallway. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, exhaling slowly. He had been on diplomatic missions before, but none like this. The princess's attention was constant, her curiosity endless. And now he realized something else. She wasn't just following him to learn about humans, she was protecting him, and he had the feeling that soon he would need that protection more than ever. 3 days after their tour of the city, Ethan found himself standing at the edge of the grand festival square. Valoria was celebrating the Day of First Light, a holiday marking the founding of their capital. Colorful banners stretched between the crystal towers, and the air carried the scent of roasted fruits and sweet-spiced drinks. Serenia had insisted he join her for the event. "It is important you see our people when they are happy," she had told him that morning. "Festivals show the true heart of a world." Ethan was still not sure if walking into a crowd was wise, especially after the encounter with the man who had told him to leave. But the princess seemed confident. So, here he was, walking beside her as they moved among dancers, musicians, and merchants. Many stared, some whispered, and others simply watched in silence. Ethan tried to focus on the music and the laughter, but there was a tension beneath the surface. He could feel it. As they reached the central fountain, a group of performers began a traditional dance. Serenia stood close to watch, her eyes bright. "Do you have dances like this?" she asked Ethan. "Not exactly," he replied with a smile. "Ours look different, but we also dance to celebrate." They were still talking when a sudden voice rose from the crowd. "Human!" Ethan turned to see a tall man in deep green robes stepping forward, flanked by 3 others. Their expressions were cold and fixed on him. "You have broken our sacred law," the man declared loudly so that nearby people turned to listen. "You entered the Hall of Whispers without permission. That place is forbidden to outsiders." Ethan frowned. "I've never even heard of the Hall of Whispers." The man ignored him, turning to the crowd. "It is clear this off-worlder has no respect for our traditions. He must be removed before more harm is done." A murmur spread through the square. A few people nodded, others looked uncertain. Serenia stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You are mistaken. He did no such thing. I was with him for the past days, and I personally took him only where he was permitted." The man's lips tightened. "Princess, even you cannot deny that witnesses saw him." "Then your witnesses lie," she said firmly, her voice carrying over the noise of the crowd. "If they claim otherwise, let them come forward now, in front of all." Silence followed. No one stepped forward. Serenia looked around slowly, meeting the eyes of the onlookers. "This is the problem with fear. It makes people invent danger where there is none. Ethan is my guest. As long as he remains under my protection, he is beyond harm from such false claims." The crowd shifted. Some looked impressed, others uneasy, but no one challenged her. The man in green robes glared at Ethan one last time before stepping back into the crowd. The people around him slowly dispersed, and the music started again, though not as lively as before. Ethan exhaled. "Thank you, that could have gone very wrong." Serenia glanced at him. "It almost did. There are those who want you gone, Ethan. They will keep trying until they succeed, or until they learn there is no use." "Why me? Why are they so focused on me?" "Because you are new," she said simply. "And new things unsettle old minds." They continued walking, but the mood had shifted. Serenia kept a little closer to him now, scanning the crowd with sharp eyes. Whenever someone looked at Ethan too long, her gaze would meet theirs until they turned away. Later, as they sat at a small table in a shaded corner of the square, Ethan asked, "What is the Hall of Whispers?" "It is a chamber in the old palace, where our ancestors stored their earliest records," Serenia explained. "Only the royal family and certain scholars may enter. Accusing you of stepping inside it is a serious charge, enough to turn public opinion against you." "So they were trying to frame me?" "Yes." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "This isn't just curiosity anymore, is it? You're keeping me close because you think someone might actually try to remove me from here." She looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "I keep you close because I do not want you to be alone in a place that does not yet understand you. And because I believe you will matter to Valoria more than anyone here realizes." Before Ethan could respond, a group of children approached the table. One of them, a small girl with shimmering green hair, held out a carved crystal figure, shaped like a bird. "Is this what humans look like?" she asked shyly. Ethan chuckled. "Not exactly, but it's very good." He took the figure, studied it, then handed it back. "Thank you." The children giggled and ran off, leaving Serenia smiling faintly. "See? Not all hearts are closed." As the afternoon wore on, the festival began to glow with evening light. Lanterns shaped like stars floated into the air, casting gentle light across the square. The music grew warmer, and for a moment, Ethan almost forgot the earlier tension. Almost, because as they prepared to leave, he noticed the man in the green robes watching from a distance, his eyes following them until they disappeared into the crowd. Walking back toward the palace, Serenia finally spoke again. "Today was a warning, but tomorrow, we will not hide. I will take you to the border villages. There the people are less bound by court politics. You will see another side of Valoria." Ethan gave her a small smile. "And you'll follow me everywhere there too?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Until my people understand that you belong here, I will." And though he didn't say it out loud, Ethan felt a strange sense of comfort in that promise. Whatever was coming, he wouldn't be facing it alone. The next morning, Ethan found Princess Serenia waiting outside his guest room, already dressed in a traveling outfit. Instead of her flowing silver gowns, she wore light armor made of layered fabric and crystal plates, practical for long journeys. Her hair was tied back, and she carried a small satchel. "You're ready early?" Ethan said, surprised. "When I said we leave at first light, I meant it," she replied with a faint smile. "The border villages are far. If we leave now, we will arrive before sunset." 2 guards accompanied them, along with a small transport pulled by a creature that looked like a cross between a horse and a gazelle. The open-air carriage moved smoothly along the crystal roads, and soon the grand towers of the capital faded into rolling hills and wide plains dotted with glowing flowers. Serenia sat across from Ethan, her eyes bright. "These villages are not like the capital. The people there are more direct. They do not care for palace games, but they can be suspicious of outsiders. If you are kind, they will see it." Ethan nodded. "I'll try to make a good impression." "Do not try," she said simply. "Be yourself. That is what they must see." The road wound through forests of tall, thin trees with silver leaves that shimmered in the wind. The air smelled fresher, here, untouched by the city. Eventually, the path opened onto a wide valley where clusters of crystal-roofed houses stood near a slow-moving river. Children played along the banks, their laughter carrying in the air. As they entered the village, people paused in their work to watch. Some nodded politely at the princess, but their eyes lingered on Ethan. He could feel their questions even without words. The village elder, a short, broad-shouldered woman with deep golden markings on her skin, came forward. "Princess Serenia," she greeted warmly, "we are honored by your visit." "Elder Lyra," Serenia replied, bowing her head. "This is Ethan, a human from a distant world. He is here as a guest of Valoria." Lyra studied him carefully. "A human. I have heard the word, but never seen one." "And now you have," Ethan said with a small smile. "It's an honor to meet you." The elder's gaze softened slightly, and she gestured for them to follow her into the central gathering space. It was a wide, circular area with low stone benches and a fire pit in the center. Villagers gathered, curious to hear what the princess and her strange companion had to say, while Serenia spoke to the elder about trade routes and supplies. Ethan noticed a group of children trying to peek at him from behind a bench. One boy, braver than the rest, came forward holding a small toy carved from crystal. "Is it true?" Humans can throw things farther than we can? The boy asked. Ethan laughed. Maybe. Want to find out? Soon, he was outside with half a dozen children, tossing small stones toward a tree in the distance. The children tried to match his throw, cheering when they came close. He let them win a few rounds, and their laughter grew louder. Serenia watched from the gathering space, a faint smile on her face. She saw how the villagers began to relax around him, how his easy manner broke down the tension she had feared. Later, as they shared a meal with the elder, trouble appeared. A man from the crowd stood and pointed at Ethan. Why bring an off-worlder here? What can he offer our people? Will he fight if danger comes? Or will he hide behind the princess? Before Ethan could speak, Serenia began to answer, but he raised a hand gently to stop her. I'll answer that myself, he said. He stood looking directly at the man. I can't promise I'm the strongest fighter here, but where I come from, we protect those who stand with us. If danger comes, I won't hide. I'll stand with you. The man narrowed his eyes but didn't reply. Instead, Elder Lyra spoke. Words are easy, but action shows truth. There is a broken bridge to the east that needs repair before the river. Floods. If you wish to prove yourself, help us fix it. Ethan agreed without hesitation. The next few hours were spent hauling heavy planks and crystal supports, working alongside the villagers. The sun dipped lower in the sky and sweat clung to his skin, but he kept going. When the bridge was finally restored, several villagers nodded in approval. Even the man who had challenged him gave a silent look of respect. As they prepared to leave, Elder Lyra approached. You worked hard today, human. You did not have to. For that, you have my respect. Thank you, Ethan replied, shaking her hand. It was my honor. On the journey back, Serenia sat quietly for a while before speaking. You surprised me today. In a good way, I hope. Yes, she said softly. You did not speak of honor. You showed it. My people will remember that. Ethan smiled faintly. And you? What will you remember? She looked at him, her expression thoughtful. That perhaps humans are not so different from us after all. At least not the ones like you. The carriage rolled on through the evening, light, the distant towers of the capital slowly coming into view. But Ethan could still feel the warmth of the villagers' smiles, and the knowledge that he had taken the first step toward earning their trust. And though he didn't know it yet, that trust would soon be tested in ways neither he nor Serenia could imagine. The journey back to the capital was quieter than Ethan expected. The wind carried the scent of the open plains, and the warm colors of sunset painted the horizon. Princess Serenia sat across from him in the carriage, her gaze turned toward the distant towers. She looked thoughtful, as if her mind was already back in the palace halls. You're thinking about something, Ethan said. I'm thinking about how the capital will react, she replied softly. The villagers will speak well of you, but in the city not everyone will listen. He gave a small shrug. I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I just want to help where I can. Her eyes met his. And that is why some will fear you. You help without asking for anything in return. It unsettles those who measure everything in gain and loss. When they reached the palace gates, the mood shifted immediately. Guards stood in greater numbers than usual, and whispers followed them as they walked through the corridors. Serenia led Ethan to the council chamber without explaining, but he could already sense tension in the air. Inside, the Council of Valoria sat in a half-circle of crystal chairs. The king was present, seated at the center, his expression serious. Princess Serenia, he began, his voice calm but heavy. We have heard troubling reports regarding your human guest. Ethan kept silent, letting her speak. What reports? She asked. That his presence stirs division, one counselor said. Some fear he learns too much about our ways. Others say he is preparing for human advantage. Another counselor leaned forward. There are calls from the Merchant Guild and the security order to send him away before matters worsen. Serenya's eyes hardened. Send him away? For what crime? For walking beside me? For helping my people repair a bridge? Or for simply existing in your presence? The first counselor frowned. Princess, it is not about dislike. It is about stability. Stability built on fear is weakness, she countered. You would remove an ally because you cannot imagine that different can also mean trustworthy. The king raised a hand, silencing the room. No decision will be made today, but the matter will be discussed again soon. Princess, you should consider how your actions affect the balance of our world. I already have, she said firmly. And my conclusion is that Ethan stays. The meeting ended, but the weight of unspoken threats lingered. Outside the chamber, Ethan exhaled slowly. That could have gone worse. It will, Serenya said without hesitation. They will press harder next time, but I will not let them take you. Serenya, Ethan began. You don't have to. I do, she interrupted. Because they are wrong about you. And because, if I let them drive you away, I will have failed both you and my people. Over the next few days, the pressure grew. Rumors spread through the palace corridors, claims that Ethan had been seen near restricted areas, that he was gathering information for human forces. None of it was true, but lies spread faster than truth. Still, Serenya refused to distance herself from him. In fact, she seemed more determined than ever to be seen in public with him. They walked the palace gardens together, attended minor court gatherings, and even visited the training yards where guards practiced. One afternoon, as they watched the guards spar, a young soldier approached Ethan. Human, he said in a challenging tone. They say you talk of honor. Show us then. Face me in a friendly bout. Ethan hesitated. I'm not here to fight, but Serenya's voice was calm. Show them what I have seen, not to humiliate, but to prove you are not weak. So Ethan stepped into the practice circle. The bout was short. He was not as fast as the Valorian soldier, but he used timing and simple moves to outmaneuver him. When the soldier found himself on the ground, Ethan offered a hand to help him up. You fight with respect, the soldier said, breathing heavily. I misjudged you. Word of that small victory traveled quickly. It didn't end the rumors, but it made some in the guard speak more openly in his defense. By the week's end, the council called another meeting. This time, the chamber was full, and tension hung in the air. The Merchant Guild's leader spoke first. Princess, your human companion may have earned goodwill in the outer villages, but here, his presence creates risk. If he remains, trade. Partners may see it as favoritism toward humans. Serenya stepped forward, her voice clear. Then let them see it. If they believe kindness toward one human is favoritism, they reveal their own prejudice. I will not govern to satisfy fear. Another counselor said, and what of security? What if his people use him to gather knowledge for war? Ethan finally spoke, his tone steady. I'm not here to harm Valoria. My mission was to learn, yes, but to learn how our worlds can work together, not against each other. If you send me away, you lose a chance to understand humans the way I am learning, to understand you. The king studied Ethan for a long moment before speaking. Counselors, you have heard both sides. I will give my decision in due time. Until then, the human stays. The meeting ended with mixed reactions. Some counselors left in silence, others muttering under their breath. But Serenya's gaze was unwavering as she walked beside Ethan out of the chamber. You spoke well, she said quietly. You've been defending me for days, Ethan replied. Figured it was my turn, she smiled faintly. And yet, this is only the beginning. Something is coming, Ethan. Something that will force all of them to see who you really are. He looked at her, curious. What makes you so sure? Because the galaxy rarely stays quiet for long, she said. And when the storm comes, you will not face it alone. The night before, everything changed. The capital seemed calm. The sky glowed faintly with drifting light orbs, and the palace gardens were quiet except for the soft hum of insects. Ethan stood on a balcony outside his guest quarters, looking toward the distant towers. He had been in Valoria long enough to grow used to the strange colors of the sky, but not long enough to feel at home. He heard footsteps behind him. "You're awake late," Princess Serenia said, stepping onto the balcony. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Too much on my mind." "About the council?" she guessed. "About what's next," he said. "I don't think they'll ever fully trust me." Her eyes softened. "Trust is not given all at once, Ethan. Sometimes it takes a moment that changes everything." That moment came sooner than either of them expected. Just before dawn, alarms rang through the palace. A deep echoing horn sounded from the walls, and guards rushed through the corridors. Ethan grabbed his jacket and stepped into the hallway, meeting Serenia already on her way toward the king's chamber. "What's happening?" he asked, moving quickly beside her. "Pirate raiders," she said, her voice tense. "They've breached the outer defense ring." By the time they reached the main hall, the king was surrounded by guards and advisors. "The attackers have landed near the eastern quarter," a guard reported. "Their target appears to be the royal district." Serenia turned to her father. "You must secure the civilians. I'll help lead the defense here. You will remain in the inner safe chambers," the king ordered. But before she could argue, an explosion shook the palace. Crystal dust rained from the ceiling, and the sound of weapons echoed from the outer gates. "Stay with her," the king told Ethan, pointing to the princess. Ethan nodded. "I will." Together, they moved through the palace toward the sound of the fighting. The air was filled with sharp electric smells from discharged weapons. When they reached the east wing, they found guards clashing with armored raiders. One of the attackers spotted Serenia and shouted something to his allies. Before the guards could react, two raiders broke through the line and charged toward her. Ethan didn't think. He acted. He grabbed a fallen guard's staff-like weapon and stepped between the raiders and the princess. The first swung at him, but Ethan blocked the strike, twisting the weapon out of his grip. The second lunged, and Ethan drove the butt of the staff into his chest, sending him stumbling back. "Behind you!" Serenia warned. Ethan turned in time to parry another blow, the impact rattling through his arms. He used the momentum to sweep the attacker's legs, dropping him hard onto the polished floor. The guards rallied, pushing the raiders back toward the gates. One of them shouted, "The eastern passage is clear!" But the danger wasn't over. As they moved toward the courtyard, a loud crack split the air. Part of the wall gave way, and a towering figure in heavy armor stepped through. A pirate commander. His weapon glowed with heat, and his visor locked onto Serenia. Ethan stepped forward instinctively. "Stay behind me!" The commander swung a massive blade, and Ethan barely dodged, the force of the strike shattering the crystal floor where he had stood. Ethan jabbed with the staff, aiming for gaps in the armor, but the pirate was strong and fast. Serenia, refusing to stay idle, picked up a guard's sidearm and fired at the commander's leg joints. The shot slowed him, giving Ethan the opening he needed. He swung the staff hard, striking the side of the helmet. The commander staggered, and the guards surged forward to finish the fight. When it was over, the raiders were retreating, their ships lifting into the green-gold sky. The palace guards began tending to the wounded and repairing the breached walls. In the aftermath, Serenia stood beside Ethan, her breathing unsteady but her eyes bright. "You fought like one of us," she said quietly. "I fought because you were in danger," he replied. Word of the battle spread quickly. By midday, the council chamber was filled again. But this time the atmosphere was different. Counselors who had once doubted him now spoke of his bravery. Elder Lyra from the border village sent a message. The human has proven himself in both peace and danger. He is welcome among us." When the king addressed the council, his voice carried weight. "We judge others by their actions. Today, this human risked his life for my daughter and for Valoria. There will be no more talk of sending him away. From this day forward, he is an honored friend of our people." Applause filled the chamber, and even the merchant guild leader gave a respectful nod. After the meeting, Serenia walked with Ethan through the palace gardens. The air smelled of blooming night flowers, and the fountains glowed softly in the moonlight. "When we first met," she said, "you were just a curiosity to me, a story come to life. Now, you are proof that trust can grow even where fear once stood." Ethan smiled. "And you're proof that sometimes following someone everywhere can be a good thing." She laughed softly. "Then I will keep following you, human, wherever the galaxy takes us." Together, they walked into the quiet night, side by side, not as princess and foreign guest, but as friends whose bond had changed two worlds.